You know, every time a story like this sort of comes up in the news, my first reaction is to think, I thought we didn't deal with these issues anymore. I thought both these diseases had been taken care of, solved. We don't hear about them at all. And then suddenly, public health here in Montreal reports that they've seen tuberculosis cases as well as syphilis cases on the rise, which begs the question, what's going on? What has changed now? I don't know, which is why we have Dr. Chris Labos on. He's a cardiologist with a degree in epidemiology, a regular contributor here on CJAD as well. So, Chris, let me ask, first of all, and I know I'm wrong, when I saw the word tuberculosis, I thought tuberculosis and polio were done. So what's going on here exactly?
So polio is done, at least in North America. It is still present globally. And tuberculosis is largely the same. We do not see tuberculosis in Montreal in very few cases. You do still see a lot of it in the northern communities, especially amongst the indigenous groups. But the majority of the cases that we see in Montreal are cases where people came from overseas. They contracted tuberculosis in their home country. And this is the problem that we have with most infectious diseases, that we can eliminate them where we are here in North America. But if we don't eradicate them globally, they always have the potential to come back because of the movement of populations as people move from one country to the other.
So when you say coming from other countries, are they not treating this in other countries the same way we do? Or why would there be an increase there as opposed to here? What are we doing differently?
Well, I think here's the thing. Tuberculosis was everywhere until the advent of antibiotics. So if you have a good program where you can screen people and treat people with tuberculosis, you can essentially eliminate tuberculosis, because the minute you treat somebody, they can no longer pass it on to somebody else. But the treatment of tuberculosis is a very, very, I don't want to say complicated thing, but it's a very laborious thing. It's like months of antibiotic therapy. It's not like, 1 week of, pills. You have to basically be treated for months. And so if you don't have the medical infrastructure to treat people and also to screen people for tuberculosis and treat them, cases will go undiagnosed. Tuberculosis will go into sort of like a latent phase where it's still inside of you, but you're not symptomatic. And so back in the day, there were people who had tuberculosis in their system that would only reawaken sort of years and years after the original infection. And so that's what's happening as people immigrate to this country. They may have had tuberculosis as a child, lived through it, but the bacteria is still in their system, and it can always potentially become reawakened. The one scenario in which we did see an increase of tuberculosis cases in North America was with the AIDS epidemic. When AIDS hit in the 1980s, because AIDS suppresses your immune system, obviously, all of these people who got tuberculosis in the 1950s then got AIDS in the 1980s, tuberculosis reawakened in their systems. That's when you saw a big resurgence of tuberculosis back then.
All right, let me move. I don't want to run out of time. Then I said the other story that ties into this, although it's a strange tie-in, is, again, a rise in syphilis cases. So that's a sexually transmitted infection. I thought we figured out how to avoid that. Are we being less concerned or more promiscuous? Where's this coming from, do you think?
Well, so you're right. I mean, syphilis is very easy to treat. It's a single dose of penicillin. It's the easiest thing in the world, but you need a healthcare system to diagnose it. If people don't have a family doctor, if people don't go for checkups, if people say, it's too complicated, let me see if this goes away on its own, the original infection of syphilis will go away on its own. And that's the problem. Somebody might look at the lesion and be like, oh, well, it's gone now. I guess I'm fine. And so if they don't ultimately go to a doctor and get tested, they will never get that single dose of penicillin. The syphilis will stay in their system and will only reawaken years potentially later when it starts to destroy the central nervous system. And particularly problematic is we're seeing cases of congenital syphilis where pregnant women pass it on to their babies. And when that's happening, that means that pregnant women are not getting the prenatal care that they should be getting, because this should be part of the routine screening. So the fact that we're seeing that is sort of a reflection of the fact that a bit of a breakdown in the system where people can't get access to treat stuff that should be fairly easy to treat.
So in this particular case, if you describe, a symptom here and you say it's too easy to ignore, what should you be looking at first and then doing what about it?
Honestly, go see your doctor. If you have a lesion on your nether regions and you think it might be syphilis or some other sexually transmitted infection, go to your doctor and get tested. A lot of these are easily treatable with antibiotics. This is a very simple thing. And, unfortunately, if you're one of the many people that doesn't have a family doctor, make an appointment on Click Santé, go to your local GMF, just go see somebody and explain what the problem is. This is an easily addressable problem. I think the big issue that we're having now is a little bit of complacency People think sexually transmitted infections are not a big deal. They don't know what to look for. They're not going to get tested for them. That's when things start to get out of control, when we're just a little bit complacent and just let things slide.
By the way, because it's, as I said, I haven't heard, talk about this in so long. Is this about, multiple partners? Is that part of an issue here? Does it not necessarily mean that?
Not necessarily, but because here's the thing, if you don't treat it, you are going to keep passing it on. Now, obviously, if you're in a stable monogamous relationship, you don't have syphilis, your partner doesn't have syphilis, you're not going to introduce syphilis into that relationship. So, yes, when you have multiple partners, that obviously increases the risk. But this is how people live, right? When you're talking about people who are not married, who are in their 20s, yeah, they might change partners. And this is the problem. If the infection is in your system, and you don't know it, you will infect everybody that you ultimately partner with over the course of years. It doesn't mean it's, from one day to the next.
And last question, when you said lesions, could these lesions be anywhere, or would they be primarily on your private parts?
Primarily on your private parts, sometimes on the orally as well, so where people, exchange saliva and such. So anywhere where the infection gets an entry point to your body.
Okay. Wow. Chris, thank you so much. Appreciate it.